Okay, so what I thought I'd do because that encapsulates probably about 25 years, 30 years of work. So how did I get to this point after leaving art school, and what brought me to this particular place? So I thought what I would do is put a visual together. I'm not going to read to every slide. I'm just going to read and the thing will click over. And that means that you get an understanding of the historical behind the work, and how I actually came to this particular point. And it's quite a tumultuous journey through one's life. A lot of people think that, it's a romantic idea of being an artist and, you do this, you have success and da-da-da, but it's actually a really difficult road to hoe as an artist, and as, to be a parent, to be a carer, to do all those things as well as to make art. So I grew up in Turrbal country, in Mission, in Brisbane, and I went to 7 Hills Art School. I actually lived in Camp Hill, so I only had to sort of trot across the hill and go to school. I had a Rusty Rog as a father and a Bogan mother from Delulu. They would just laugh. They'd be rolling in their graves laughing at me saying things like that. But I was one of 5 daughters, and I was the youngest of those 5 daughters. So I became the, sacrificial lamb as the son. So I did, like Jo, her talk yesterday was great. Jill's talk yesterday was great because she's also one of 5 daughters, and this is her work around the corner and how her father, took her on great adventures, etc. And I was the same, so I became an expert fisherman. So hence most of all my rigging and everything is all fishing employed through traces and swivels and da-da-da. So my father did give me some great background in that sort of area. I now live as an adult I've lived on the sunny coast in Kabi Kabi country, and there lies in the struggle to be a regional artist. That's the first step, and the second step is to be a mother, and the third step is actually to be a wife. So what I found that landscape was my passion. So from my practice, whenever I was in the landscape, it was about the behaviour that occurred in the landscape that actually instilled the interaction in the work that I would be producing. Yes, I've got this terrible, not COVID thing going on. I actually do have COVID. Thank you. Just don't drop it on you. No, not that. Problematic. So that's when my masters came in. So I started and finished my master. I started my masters in like 1996, finished it in 2001, I think. It took me like 6 years because I had 3 kids and I was doing it part-time. I was working at the Queensland Art Gallery. I was travelling to Brisbane. It was just nuts. I don't even know how I sustained it when I look back. However, it was about interaction as a sculptural strategy, and that is the pinnacle of my work. It's the thesis of my work to here today as well, even though it looks differently. So in 2002, I went to Milan for 3 months, and I took my whole family. How nuts is that? So if I could survive 3 months in a 5 by 5 metre space, bathroom, kitchen, lounge, bedroom, toilet, laundry, with 5 individuals, my eldest was 15, my youngest was 10, and survived that, I could survive anything, I thought. So it did actually help me to consolidate and utilise those strengths to actually continue to work. And I realised a couple of things that were really important to me, and that then I had to bring them into my work. One was gardening, the other was sewing. 2 of my huge strengths as an individual that I thought wasn't placed within a practice, because, it's man's world, mate. You had to make sculptures out of metal and whatever. So I just went, no, to hell with it. I'm going to actually put those 2 pieces together. So I came back and I proposed a number of projects that were land-based, and these were, this was accepted into the 2003 Helen Lampriere Award. It was called Rug. It was actually 8 by 10 metres, and it was actually a replica of one of the Victorian rugs that were in the mansions in Werribee Park. It took me a week to install, great fun, and I didn't win first prize, obviously. Big metal sculpture by a bloke, won $125,000 that year. So hopeful. Was one of 25. So my career was going pretty well. Like, I was pushing it and I was getting there, and 2004 saw me with a full solo show at the Institute of Modern Art, which only this year they've recognised that on their website due to me actually saying, hey, where's my show on your website? there it is. So it's called Lobby Play. A number of artworks right throughout the whole building, as well as there's some supported by Queensland Arts grant, etc. Here's some of the works. It was supported by Joyce Foam, who gave me all the foam that I wanted to use. It was great, they were fantastic. So these ones were called Dimples. They were for the immersive video space. You'd watch videos, you were then immersed physically in the space, and you could watch the video while you were being consumed by the space. Others were responses to the arts rooms, you know, because the Judith Wright Centre is all full of arts organisations. So Circa with their one-legged stool, so anyone that was sitting in their lobby waiting could balance on the stool and actually show their prowess. These were pieces that were out in the foyer. You had to put a coin in, it would vibrate for 5 seconds. So you really had a good interlude between shots. So I had a lot of humour in my work, and I played on using the vernacular of furniture a lot, because that meant that people would react and interact with my work, and it could interact and react back without it being seen as art and, you know, the no-go zone. Because after working at Queensland Art Gallery, it was always, you know, you perceived art like this. You still do perceive work like that. So I wanted to crush that theory and bring people in. So the only way I could do that was to use the vernacular of furniture. These guys didn't even have any furniture, so I actually created one and a person at their front desk because they didn't have any, because they had no money, because they're an arts organisation. Youth arts, you know, everyone together. It's a team working together. So, you know, just in that play, Lobby Play itself, this was probably as big as this space in Gallery 1, and people could move the work, reconstruct it, become part of the work, so they became the artist, they became the viewer, they became the audience. So it was that whole physical space. What do you do with all that stuff? Like, what do you do? Okay, so I cannibalised it. I cut it up and I hand carved it, got it flocked, sent it over to Dubai. They loved it, did some more. It was just reconstructed for a show I just had last year. So that's what happens to a lot of work. You've got to get rid of it. Then I did a Bundanon residency where I started to actually work without the objects per se. And but what impacted on me was the landscape, the changing landscape from here to Sydney to Bundanon. It was just instant suburbia, just add water. There's houses everywhere. So this was on the Shoalhaven. It's called the Shoalhaven, the plan. It's a, what do you call it? It's a Metrocom home called the Shoalhaven. So few people who visited actually physically had to go through the door, etc. So it was a play on that. And of course it was ephemeral because then they'd mow it and it was gone. Another residency in Albury Wodonga, looking at the buildings and the structures and the landscape, which was very Art Nouveau. So producing work, again, carved foam. So I'm using things that is very, I suppose, more feminine in the materials that I'm using. And I got caught up with looking at that landscape and looking at landscape of the object. So I blew it up, and then I blew it up again, and I blew it up so big you could actually go inside. And so it was immersive. So this is where these sorts of spaces started to arrive. And they're inflatables. No objects anymore. No big storage anymore, even though I still have problem with storage. This particular work, you know, went into a suitcase with a blower and that was it. So I could travel with it and I could set it up somewhere and do something really big. So for the Lawn Biennale, I actually reconstructed that one, took the middle out and grew a tree in the middle of it. Because people said, how did you grow the tree in the middle of that piece? I went, come on, don't be silly. Of course what I did was I wrapped it around the tree, but I then inflated it around the tree so people could actually experience the tree up close and personal. Hence came a whole series. Public art started to really, I mean this is out of sequence because this is about 2018, just before COVID hit. Yeah. Only because the work was produced in 2008 and then I've reused it. But during that period, public art became quite big. There was a 2% change for public art for most buildings. So, you know, you could actually pitch some great ideas and they could be supported. This particular one, so I really pitched hard on land art because I love the gardening side of it. And of course, none of them doing it. That's why UAP is so big now because they all do big metal sculptures. So I was going for the soft approach, so that was the gardening side of things, and that was outside the Department of Primary Industries, whose their main interest is turf. So I produced a turf work, which I thought was very appropriate. Unfortunately, this work does not exist anymore because they said it doesn't sit with their ethos anymore, even though they started turf. It's too hard for them to maintain. I told them it was grooming, but they didn't see it that way. So not only was I working in the landscape, I was walking in the landscape. So I walked a lot, and I collaborated with other artists and walked through Tasmania into Hobart, and we did this project where we combined the walking, the inflatables, the sewing, the cooking, the whole thing in Cast Gallery, and we produced a work called Landscapers. So it's 15 metres by 19 metres in size, and it is the inflatable experience of the walk. So this is where all the walking started in my practice, and that's the drawing of it. Again, we were still producing works where it was taking over space. These are the interventions where you'd actually take over a space and put something in it, and it would change how people would perceive the site. This was the start of those small projects with the Museum of Brisbane, and we cut off a street in Eagle Lane and we put a park in there, so hence the pocket parks and the lounges, which I call mountain ranges of lounges. So it's just artificial. It was supposed to be there for 3 months, then of course became like a 6-month stint. The landscapers also then was taken up as temporary projects and put in 6 different places throughout Brisbane over a 12-month period. It would only last a week. We'd install it as an intervention, and then we would take it out again. So that's in the Queensland State Library in the Knowledge Wall. So it was there for a week. The rigging on that was fun. That was in the Judith Wright Centre, the old museum, Suncorp.
That's good.
So that's the piazza. Yeah. Obviously photoshopped, we did it 4 times. But we put it out one day and we take it in, we put it out, we bring it in, we take it out every day. So a lot of work, but it was fun. And then getting the opportunities to actually landscape internal spaces, hence when the artificial work started. So I was really busy, but wasn't making lots of money, because I want you to know that. There wasn't lots of money being made, but I was really busy. And I felt as though, my art practice was, thriving and it was being recognised, etc. Hence, even getting the knowledge from, acknowledgement from the Australia Council through the residencies. I had 2 stints of 2 developmental grants where they gave me money to stay home and produce work, hence where the inflatables came from. So I was, I was in a good place, right? Never lasts, you know that. Never lasts. Okay, so, black screen, nothing happened. The GFC hit. How does that affect an artist? Well, it doesn't. It affected my husband, who went into some crazy bubble of blackness, and being in construction, there was nothing. He had no work. And of course, my best patron was lost to me. So that's when I really had to push it to earn a living and to change my practice completely. But I still was producing work and developing the work. And this is Kangaroo Point Park, which was a fantastic commission, the best commission I had. And it lasted 3 years because it was a growing work. So I had to produce works that I was working in the nursery and then working with Brisbane City Council, and then we did the whole launch. Oh, sorry, went a bit too fast. Did the launch, started, did some more inflatables. So yeah, that was a really busy time, and it was great because it substituted the income that my husband wasn't obtaining anymore. And then, people would ask me to do, projects where I could produce green rooms and urban spaces. Then I started to think I was really part of the landscape, so I started this whole series of Me as a Tree. Many of these works have never been seen in galleries or anything like that. So it was a whole series of things. I think this is me as the deity tree, the one with the 8 arms. So I was thinking I was a godlike tree. I was hopeful. projects where I then had to change the way I work. So these were land stencils that I was doing. So mainly not here anywhere on the coast. This was Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, wherever. But then I went to Liverpool for 3 months. That was the second residency. I think that was about 2014, 15. It sort of rolled over. That was just amazing. I didn't take my children this time because they were too old, I told them, and they were. And I couldn't afford to anyway. I did take my husband, which I think was a really good thing because he really needed to have that physical break. And we spent a lot of time travelling to a whole pile of sculpture parks throughout northern, all of Europe basically, as much as we could probably fit in that period of time. But while I was travelling, I wanted to document that process. And I'm not a photographer by any means. I'm not even a happy snapper, good happy snapper. So I had to find a tool that would actually do that. So I found this tool that's a cameraless capture tool, which you all would know as a photocopier. That you just use when you go into the naughty part of the library where you're not allowed to take books out, and you photocopy them and take them home. So this is a tool not used for art processes mainly, but I found this tool and I started to document where I'd been. It started to make me really grounded in where I was, literally ground. So that's just, you know, the road signage on the ground. Happened to be in Dover one day looking at the ships coming into Calais, and I had 2 scanners and I was just doing, you know, one of those angel things you see on TV in the snow. Yeah. Well, there's no snow, but there was heaps of days so I did this. And so it became whatever I touched. So this is the interaction then changed from people interacting with my work. It was my behaviour then I was capturing. So it was whatever I touched, people got to see. So I was capturing it in that way. And I didn't even know what I captured until I got it home, because they don't have a little screen. They have a little disc, mini one, and you can only see it when you get home and look at it on the computer. So,
what year would that have been?
That was 2015.
15.
Yeah. This is when the second darkness happened. It was, you know, getting better and brighter, and, you know, I was really struggling to get out of that. I said to my husband, okay, let's just consolidate everything. We'll just sell everything and we will go buy a farm and we will sit and we will become, I don't know, monks, whatever. You know, grow our own veg, which we were doing anyway. But, so I bought a farm. I didn't know this was going to be so emotional.
You're right.
So we bought a farm, and I ended up having to care for my parents who were in their 90s. So I had 3 children back, damn it, all over the age of 50. I just got rid of my kids and, yeah, got my parents, got my husband, and, yeah, had to just deal with all that. But it was a beautiful farm. Look, it was a beautiful farm, and so then I had to start caring for the landscape. And how do I do that? There was 2 trees on this farm that had survived all of that craziness, which was farming and sugarcane and cattle and poor management, and they were still there. So I started talking to the trees like any crazy person would, because you just had this like, what am I doing with my life? So there was a, you know, the whole world had sort of stopped for me in lots of different ways. And so I started talking to the trees, and I called it Tree Dialogues, and it was quite meditative. There is means in my manners about this work, okay? But to have the history behind why I do work like this and where I am now really makes a difference. So I hung paper weights, well, actually builder's weights, because I had access to that sort of stuff, into the trees, and they would draw. It was really beautiful. It's like little ballet. You know, they were doing this little gorgeous little dance, and some days, you know, I'd say to them, what do you got to say? And it actually blew me away what they did for me.
So this is interesting, Nicole, because it was the audience does the work,
Yeah.
you do the work, and now nature does the work So
Correct.
it's quite lovely.
So it's changed, and it's about being an artist and finding I had nowhere to work. What was I working with? How could I make it happen? Drug of choice, I still had to make. If I didn't make, I'd go insane. As you can see, I'm still on the edge. I did thousands of these drawings too. But it said, believe in yourself, right? Believe in yourself, respect, gratitude. You are the centre of your own making and the landscape where you find yourself, and you will know what it is you need to do. So for 18 months I did this, day after day. I kept quiet, I didn't really do anything anywhere else. I didn't have any shows, I wasn't exhibiting, I wasn't making anything big. And then my father died. Was caring for them, then he died. And my mother decided to go back to Brisbane. And at the same time, I'd got a residency to Sydney. So I went to Sydney and started talking to those trees. That was what I was there for. I talked to the trees, I talked to the flowers, I talked to the roses, I talked to the curry pines, I talked to the bunya pines, and because I wanted to know what I needed to do. If Dad had died, and Andrew was still in Swaziland, and if Mum then moves to Brisbane, what do I need to do? Why have I got this farm? Why am I doing all of this sort of stuff? And I still don't have anywhere to make any work. Bloody hell. So, while I was down there, the billy can was invented. Because I went, how am I going to make work? If the trees can do it through movement, then I can do it. So what do I have to say? So went to Kmart, and as you do, you always look at things differently as an artist, and voila, the billy can was invented. And the billy can is basically a weighted pen over paper. So when you move, it does a drawing. And that was the first iteration. But at the same time, I was using just a tracking app of walking. So I started tracking myself and doing drawings. So they were all virtual. So now I was doing all the work again. So the residency is there, and I was surrounded by all of this green in the middle of Sydney. So I started to walk and track myself and then create patterns of my walking. So it was about being present, about being where you were, but seeing what you did in that presence and your actuality. So I did this whole series of patterns in Pratton Park. And, I just do different designs and different series and bring them back to the studio. They were the resulting billy can drawings. These were the resulting land scans that I was doing, wherever I was. So some of them being urban, some of them being organic, some of them being weeds in the gutter on Parramatta Road. I took that whole thing, that's the tree museum, down to Lawn in 2018 and walked with the elderly and whoever else wanted to with the billy cans. I made 100 of them, and people were just to give them back. Well, I only got 30 back, so I really liked them. I see that as a compliment. I took it, that's a 5K walk myself, looking at art. So this is when it was changing. So now I was actually working or being in the three-dimensional world and producing two-dimensionality of that experience. And I had to go back to work because, who was going to feed us? And I was still, I had sold the farm then, and we had to work out how we could survive. I didn't have enough money to buy anything, so 35 years of working and nothing. Banks wouldn't even look at us, we're too old. So I went back teaching. It broke my heart, but I did it, and these are the kids that I taught. So that would make them run around with billy cans, that was fun. And then I also looked at other projects that I could do. So I'd drive out to Dalby, teach 1 day a week, and I'd drive back to Dalby and spend 4 days out there walking with the elderly and people with dementia and so forth. And there's the sort of drawings that we produced, which I have bags of, bags and bags, as you can tell. Okay, so while I was also walking, and I was also land scanning. So this was a work that I put in the show some years ago, which won a prize as well as I sold it, which was great. Couldn't have come at a better time, really. And just recently I did a residency. I've been walking with the in the Canberra Arboretum through the hawk forests to walk at night with women and feeling safe. And they asked me to come down and do a residency. So see, these are some of the land scans that I've been working on for them, which will then go into an animation which will be part of the Biennale later in the year. Again, yes. So these now are becoming, you know, action shots, I guess. And at the same time, they were using the billy cans, and then they were were using the walking app as well. So during that period of time when I was walking with the elderly, I realised this was a little cumbersome, though fun, cumbersome. So I went about trying to find out how I could do it digitally. And that's what I've been working for the last 5 years, how I can make it digitally, except for I haven't worked out how to make money out of it yet. It's just cost me a lot. But some of the land scans that I've been producing have been really quite beautiful. Of urban spaces as well as organic spaces.
And they're stitched together, aren't they, Nicole? They're stitched together.
They are stitched. Yeah. No, some of them are just one single scan. Yes, wow. I try to do that whole singular scanning of pieces. And then my mother died. That was really tough. Yeah. And at the same time I had a residency at Second Space, just a little one, just for a month. And I thought, throw everything out. What am I doing? Why am I even here? What am I doing? So I thought, I've got to try and capture that memory. There was still so many things I wanted to ask her. And I wanted to talk to her about different things. And she wasn't there. How do you hold memory? How do trees hold memory? What does memory look like? So I asked a choreographer to help me with that process, because I wanted to do something light and ephemeral, and I wanted to do something that had that ability to hold a second. And my inflatables do that, but they have to have this constant airflow. I just wanted, you know, something that actually was uplifting and gave that feeling of beauty in that split second. So I did a bit of research and I came up with this process called shibori, which is not a new process, of course. It is a process that usually goes with dyeing, not dyeing, but dyeing blue. And it's an old Japanese process of dyeing. And it's basically about wrapping objects and then steaming or boiling the fabric so it holds memory. So every time I twined something, it was a memory of my mother. And they were knives and sharp objects that I used. It was funny. She would have laughed. And yeah, this is where this beautiful fabric in here comes from internally. And some of these traces as well. So this is the residency, so to speak, of trying to create that small moment of memory and what memory feels like. And so when Kevin asked me to be involved in this show, I went, oh my God, too much pressure to produce a new work. Yet I did produce a new work, but using material that I'd had in the past and to bring it together to create that memory. And that's how Arbor was produced. Was produced in that sense that, and it's probably better that I read something. Can you see that? Good. Because through my research as an artist, there's lots of things that you do research, and some of it is, you know, sociologists and philosophers, etc. One of the sociologists that I've been reading has been called, his name is David Singos, and he's a social geographer who suggests that there is 3 overreaching things or themes that are important to people's well-being. And I really needed to hear that. One is movement, so walking is really crucial to my practice now. Rest, which everyone needs, and encounters. These seemingly everyday experiences are central to people's well-being regardless of their social standing. And I realised that, like I was, in a terrible spot thinking that I'd lost everything and I was an orphan, believe it or not, even though I'm not old, I was an orphan. And I had to find a way to feel like I felt before, I guess. A place that provides these necessary elements that facilitates a sense of homeliness, somewhere where I felt safe. And that filters into the community and illustrates the importance of the lived experience creating a sense of place. So the whole idea of the term, the sense of place, when Kevin asked me, I just went, it's a term that's like, it's defined and can be used in different ways by different people. To some, it is characteristic of the geographic place, and some do not. So some geographic spots, whether it be trees or rocks or beaches or whatever, while to others, a sense of place is a feeling or a perception held by people, but not by the place, so it's something heartfelt. So it's often used in relationship to characteristics that make a place special or unique to that particular person. And so I had to actually find what was that authentic, unique place for me. And I didn't know what that was, but I had to put that together for this. Well, I think that's why it took me so long to produce the work, even though it's quite a simple work. I did go for a walk on Kevin's property, and I did use my land scanner, use my billy can, use the app when the internet was working, and I scanned quite a lot of stuff at his place. One of the things that I came across was this beautiful old log that I scanned, and believe it or not, the first time I scanned it, it just scanned this huge piece all the way around. I didn't realise that until I got home, because I'd scanned, rock faces, I'd scanned so many different things, got home and this piece was there, and I just went, that's got to be the piece that I use. And how to use it, I wasn't sure, but then it was the layering, and I had to create a space. So here I was, and I don't want to make it inflatable, but I wanted that ephemerality and that sense of see-throughness, I guess, that translucency, so you can see something but you can't touch it. It's that whole idea of what is memory. I hope that Arbor embraces and facilitates the experience that allows you, the individual or my audience, thought and a reading to occur, which is the simple human requirement that allows us to make our own way to interact with this place. Heidegger's work on place and experience emphasised that thought is not an intuitive position, but it originates simply from being in the openness of place. So it's about now, it's about being in that place right at that particular period of time. And another philosopher that I look at is Ponti, who is a phenomenologist. So he believes that you don't actually understand or exist in the world until you actually feel it. So that's why interaction, or skin to skin, contact. So that's why interaction in my work is really important. So entering in it and touching the fabric, touching the seat is really important. So it makes you think about the present, that second that you're in there. And the billy can does the same, because it captures that moment in time that you're actually doing it. The phone does the same, with the app, even though it's digital and it's technology. The other element that's in here as well is the element of the circle and the seat